Jesus is not just drawn to our successes. Jesus is not just drawn to our achievements, but we serve a Jesus who literally stopped in his tracks because he saw a woman who was grieving and he had compassion for her. I want you to understand that if you are experiencing grief right now, that Jesus is not asking that you come in here and that you pretend that you have it all together. He's not asking you to do what other people may ask you to do and just get over it. It happened so long ago, you should be okay by now. Jesus looks at this woman and he has compassion on her. I want you to understand what it's like to serve a Jesus who can look at you and understand in a way that no one else can understand exactly what it is that you are going through. That word saw means that he perceived. I looked it up in the Greek. He didn't just see her, he perceived what was happening on the inside of her. He understood that while the crowd may be around her, that not everyone understands what's actually happening on the inside of her. I want you to know that Jesus knows exactly what you lost. Jesus understands exactly what it meant to you. Jesus understood exactly how it's hurting you, how it changed you, and he has compassion for that. That you don't serve a Jesus who is just saying, you know what, all things work together, the way that we church colloquialize hard times for people. Jesus says, I have compassion for you. You don't have a high priest who cannot sympathize with your suffering. I want you to understand that before I even touch the body, before I even give you any advice, that I have a deep compassion for what you have lost. I don't know who's in this room, and maybe you're grieving that child that hasn't come home. Maybe you're grieving the way your life hasn't turned out the way that you anticipated. I want you to understand that two things can be true. That God can have a plan that did not include the things that you thought you needed, and God can also be compassionate that you thought you needed them in the first place. You serve a God who can stand on both sides of the fence. I can meet you where you are and still have faith for where you're headed. He looks at this woman knowing full well that he has all power in his hand. I can still bring them back to life. I can still help you to have restoration, but I want you to know that just because I have power doesn't mean that I can't sympathize. Some of us could do a better job relating to people. Just because I understand what's on the other side of it doesn't mean that I can't get in this thing with you. And he has compassion for her. Jesus is drawn to her grief.